Hello, and welcome to my 5-minute Sukuna King of Curses deck breakdown. This card is a proxy alt-art version of Malevolent the Painter that I made using Card Conjurer. For folks that haven't watched the anime Jujutsu Kaisen, this is Sukuna. Sukuna is known as the King of Curses, reigning undefeated during the golden age of Jujutsu. Sukuna was unchallenged during his heyday, and he was so eager for a worthy opponent that he made a deal in order to return to the land of the living 1,000 years later. Sukuna is a master of Jujutsu and has 4 main abilities that allows him to devastate his opponents. Dismantle, a nigh-impenetrable high-speed slash that can cut down any target in one fell swoop. Cleave, a stronger slashing attack that Sukuna normally has to make physical contact with the target to use. Divine Flame, Sukuna can manipulate fire, transforming the flames into a bow and arrow that he shoots at opponents, melting them to cinders. Malevolent Shrine, Sukuna's domain expansion. Anything within the range of this Buddhist shrine is slashed infinitely with dismantles and cleaves. There is no escape. In order to capture the full power of Sukuna, we'll need a commander that can cast high-powered slash spells at any target, player, or creature, cleave any creature that he deals damage to, manipulate firepower to immolate targets, and finally reenact his domain expansion, putting an opponent in a state where they're going to be hit with multiple unavoidable damage spells. One relatively unknown commander fits the bill, someone who is only in around 6,000 decks in EDH rec, and Malevolent the Painter. This commander is a 3-mana Grixis vampire assassin with Death Touch, and an ability that reads, the first instant or sorcery spell that you cast each turn has Casualty 2. Casualty is a mechanic in Magic where you can sacrifice a creature you control of a certain power as the spell resolves, which can prompt you to copy that spell. Now, why would this relatively weak vampire be the perfect card to encapsulate the strongest in history? Outside of his built-in Death Touch being a perfect analog to Sukuna's Cleave ability, and Hello's entire gimmick is that he gives the player insane value, literally another cast of a strong spell, in exchange for the loss of a creature on the field. This ability is reminiscent of a Binding Vow, which is one of the fundamental core tenets in JJK. Binding vows are critical magical contracts where the requestee exchanges something important of theirs in order to receive unbelievable power. Sukuna hasn't been shown to use many binding vows yet in the show, but fans of Jujutsu Kaisen the manga will know he's one of the most prolific users in the pages, using this ability multiple times to buff his attacks, protect himself from damage, and counter his opponent's strongest moves. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, this card looks like Sukuna. Yes, this card is a 4-armed Japanese ogre. No, I will not play Cascade. We're not doing Hikari just yet. Now that we've established our commander, we've crafted our deck to showcase each main ability of Sukuna. We'll break down the rest of the video into a showcase of the Binding Vow synergy, the dismantling offensive spells, the explosive inferno generators, and lastly look into the spell that best showcases his domain expansion. For Binding Vow synergy, we looked into cards that would work well with Sukuna's Casualty 2 effect. Common sacrifice staples in black such as Cult Conscript, Bloodghast, Reassembling Skeleton, and Forsaken Miner can be brought out cheap in turns 1 and 2, returning to the battlefield on average every single turn. Besides these generic staples, I want to delve deep into Sukuna's use of Fuga, or his Divine Flame. In the show, the Divine Flame is fired as an arrow at his opponent, taking the shape of a soaring phoenix. Well, it turns out there are several phoenixes in Magic the Gathering that bring themselves back under certain conditions, are all hasty flying beatsticks, and can be used just like skeletons to fulfill Sukuna's Casualty clause. For Dismantle, I used the amazing resource that is Scryfall to look up all the spells which showcase cutting, slashing, or carving in their card art. There are several spells that fit the bill. We have 7 that we can play in Grixis colors, each of them dealing damage to creatures, or in the case of the black spell variants, outright killing creatures. My 2 favorite Dismantle spells thematically would have to be Overkill and Slice from the Shadows. Overkill is a recent addition in the Final Fantasy expansion, a first of its kind, allowing you to reduce a target creature's toughness by 9,999. It's effectively an instant kill move, as creatures in Magic the Gathering cannot survive on less than 1 toughness. It being a negative X-type destruction ability gets around common commander protection cards such as Mithril Coat. Being an instant, channel your inner Sukuna and wipe the smirk off that green player that casts their Timber Protector. Slice from the Shadows is uncounterable, which gets past ward abilities and deals -X/-X to a creature where X is the additional mana you've spent to cast a spell. If you're looking to destroy their commander, there's no card better. And for more fun, Sukuna can copy the spell easily with his Binding Vow, sacrificing a creature to, I don't know, kill a second commander. We've mentioned Divine Flame, Sukuna's secondary curse technique in the form of powerful recurring phoenixes. But if you really want to make an impact, how about we channel his feat from Season 2, Episode 16, where he summoned a ball of fire big enough to wipe out a whole city. Here comes cards like the titular Demon Fire and Gyra's Immolating Inferno. These are huge spells that we can cast in the mid to late game that will be doubled by Sukuna's Binding Vow, doing critical damage to opponents. To add salt to the wound, we can prevent opponents from responding to these potential win cons. Cards like Liar, Disciple of the Drowned, and Boseiju, who shelters all, are sneaky setup pieces that guarantees the 1-2 combo lands. If somehow they manage to cast and everybody lives on their turn, cards like Maestro's Ascendancy, Cast Dissident Mage, and other sorcery instant graveyard recursion ensures these meteors aren't going away for good. For added fun, Judith Carnage Connoisseur can ensure that if these spells land, you'll get a ton of life back, possibly surviving a counterattack from players 3 and 4. The last ability of Sukuna, albeit his most important one, would be Malevolent Shrine. How the heck do we recreate this sort of ability in the game of Magic? An ability that encloses an opponent in a dome of destruction, where nothing they can do can prevent the damage. Well, funny enough, Magic has a series of instant and sorcery cards that they released back in the day, centered around a mechanic called Cleave. The Cleave mechanic is an alternative cast cost for these spells, which usually aren't worth the cardboard they're printed on. However, if a player does pay the Cleave cost, the Binding Vow restriction on these spells disappear, turning them into some of the most busted cards WotC has ever created. We'll focus on a particular busted card, Alchemist's Gamble. This is a 3-cost sorcery that normally reads, take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. Now, most people look at this and scoff. Yeah, it's slightly undercost to take a turn spell, but those spells usually don't lose you the match. Why would any sane person play this card? Well, look at the words in the square brackets. It refers to losing the game. If we play Alchemist's Gamble for its 7-mana Cleave cost, we get to take an extra turn where our damage is unpreventable from any source and we stay alive. This synergizes with Sukuna's built-in spell copy effect, where we can sacrifice a minion to double Alchemist's Gamble, giving us potential 2 extra turns in addition to the one we played the spell. This combines well with bombs like the aforementioned Divine Flame spells and stuff like Crackle with Power. There is no opponent on planet Earth that is surviving 3 whole turns with our spell-slinging, double-casting self. For extra themed brownie points, tap 10 red mana and end all of your opponents with Sundering Stroke, allowing you to slash 7 damage to 3 targets that you can double, triple, quadruple cast with all of Sukuna's Binding Vow goobers. So, do you think this deck captured the essence of Sukuna, King of Curses? Are there any cards you think would be better suited to make this deck work more effectively? Let me know. Also, thank you for watching the video. I have 2 more JJK characters coming up after this one, after which we'll put out another poll over on YouTube. More videos coming soon.